Our next panel session is on who is eating my cheese. And the moderator for this is the chairman of the India Association Congress, Mr. Saha. Where is Prashant? Okay. There he is. May we please have a big round of applause for Mr. Prashant Saha, chairman of the India Association Congress and chairman of CIMGlobal. Our panelists for this session are Alphonse Westgeest. Alphonse, are you there? Alphonse, oh, there he is. And Dr. Adish Agarwala. And Mr. Rajan Bhatia. Mr. Rajan Bhatia is the managing partner of Rajan Bhatia and Company Chartered Accountants. He's a global CFO and a leader in CFO services. His firm's Global CFO Services division is a market leader in providing consulting and virtual CFO services and provides consulting services in transforming SME and MNC, by helping them become public listed companies.
Thank you, Kavita. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's my formal welcome to all of you, and glad to see so many people are around post-lunch also. So that means you are committed, and something that we are doing is good. This session has been a very interesting topic for me, as we've been organizing conferences and consulting for associations since last 17 years. And I heard a lot of debate about non-for-profit, should we call it profit, surplus, net. And some of the terms are also new to me, and it was a great learning for me also. Now, coming back to the topic itself, it's important to understand that where is this revenue going? Are we actually utilizing the revenues that we have, or the surplus that we have, or if some of the money are going down the drain because we don't have the information, or we don't have the acquired knowledge, in terms of understanding. To talk about it, of course, we have a very, very distinguished panel. We have interesting panelist who is from who is a chartered accountant. I'm going to highlight more onto taxation area, as well as we also have someone who from the legal fraternity. Of course, we heard him last time, and he certainly created a lot of stir. No, it's good. So we will hear from the legal perspective of it. Of course, we have with us Alphonse, who is already into doing association consulting in countries in emerging market, in China, India, Europe, of course, and US. So he could give us a kind of insight in terms of what the association should be doing, or what they should be looking at in terms of their every rupee is properly utilized. Coming back to Rajan, if you could tell us that in what way taxation perspective or what this association, there are a lot of ambiguity in terms of service tax. There's a lot of ambiguity in terms of PAN number applying, or deposit in service tax. What are those?
Sure. First of all, it's been a pleasure to be attending this conference and meeting so many fine people, so many great leaders from several countries. So it's been a great pleasure, and thanks to Prashant Saha and his team at CIMGlobal. My company basically works with associations as the knowledge partners to add value to their members, essentially, which are small and medium enterprises who do not have the access to the expertise and various other services like small compliances, regulatory services. So as the associations are the custodians of SMEs, their members, so we help associations to add value to their members. Coming back to the point which Prashant has just raised, as the As far as the taxation ecosystem in India for associations are concerned, they are registered as charitable organizations under Section 25, which can be for four purposes: for relief of poor, for education, for providing medical relief, and fourth limb is for providing any object which is for the benefit of the society. So as far as the fourth limb is concerned, there is a little bit ambiguity, as there are many trade organizations which are providing the services in the form of other services, like not only the member services, but also consulting services. For example, I am a knowledge partner to UK IBC, United Kingdom India Business Council. So they provide a lot of consultancy services to their members as well as to non-members. So as far as these services are concerned, they are chargeable to tax under Section 28 as the profits and gains of business and profession. However, if the associations can establish either the four clauses of Section 2 subsection 15, which I have just narrated, or if they can establish that it is for the mutual benefit of the members, or if they can establish that it is for the object for the benefit of society at large, then it is exempt from taxation. As far as service tax is concerned, if the total revenue goes above 10 lakhs, I'm just talking about India scenario, then it is mandatory for the association to get themselves registered as service tax, and they are also falling in the category of preview of service tax. One thing I would like to add here is that for associations too, which can add maybe a selling point for when they go for getting donations, grants, that first of all, if you are not registered under Section 80G, then these receipts can be whatever funds you are getting or membership fees you are getting from your members, they can be treated as their business expense. So that can be one of your selling point, because they will actually be debited there in P&L account and charge it as business expense and can reduce their taxation bill, number one. However, if you are an organization which has 80G benefit, like you have taken which is a charitable organization or serving the society like HelpAge India, so I'm sure they must be having 80G. So whatever donations you are getting in the form of donations, so that can be exempt from tax for the donors. So these are the two particular points which can actually benefit the associations.
Going back to Alphonse, Alphonse, you do business all over the world. And of course, you have seen challenges for international association in terms of setting up chapter here. And I know some of our distinguished delegates here, those who are involved with not only Indian association, but as a member of international association, and they are looking at inviting them here. And a lot of European and American associations are now looking at setting up chapters here. Sometimes they don't understand the legal issues. What are the hurdles your client are facing?
Thank you, Prashant, and I will take that question, but I think the previous speaker would be more the expert on the local India situation in terms of taxation and of course legal. Maybe the first answer is that when a US association looks to establish a chapter, it may not be possible to have a chapter and then export the money, for example, outside the country, because that's not legally possible. We see the same in China, we see the same if you have net reserves in other countries in Europe. So you can maybe establish, but you may not be able to take any money across borders. But I think more importantly is the due process of establishing any chapters from a legal perspective, and I defer to my colleagues here. Let me give you also a perspective, if I may, Prashant, in 2 or 3 minutes on 6 items where you need to know that if you are active outside India, what you need to take into account. And secondly, you never know, because tax bodies, governments look at each other. Where can I levy the next tax? What can I learn from another region where I can tax an association or a company? So let me give that 6 points. One is that clearly an association, if it is a net, as a non-profit, you should normally not be taxed. If you have multiple years of net and you do not, as Ed said, reinvest that into new services, you may build up a reserve. In most European and US and other legislations, you're not taxed on the profit and you're not taxed on the reserves if they are reasonable. So, for example, in the US, the rule is that if you have a reserve that is equal to 6 or 12 months operating revenue, so a year reserves is okay, you will not be taxed for that. The third element is that if some of the services are actually in the commercial sphere and you start to compete with regular business, you may have a challenge in some European countries these days. And the solution that some had to go to was to split actually the activities in a membership-based organization and in an organization that was for profit and was taxed differently. And I know that in the US there's also different rules for taxation. It's too long to explain here, but where you have services corporations that are linked to the association, foundations that are linked to the association, and they're all under different tax regimes, because that is how to comply with the law. I don't think you have that, but it's something to alert upon if you go to other countries around the world. The fourth point is sales tax, or rather VAT, value-added tax. It's a very big nightmare for some associations operating in Europe or venturing into Europe. Too complicated, but you need to have the right legal advice. The fifth point is that if you hold meetings in other regions, other countries, you also may be taxed because you have a commercial operation, even if you don't have a legal entity or an office there. So you have to be watching for that. And finally, to the point that was already mentioned, can your member companies deduct your invoice from the association to them? Can they deduct that as a business expense? Or can the individual deduct it as a business expense? This is not always clear, but however, I have to say that the wording of that invoice will obviously be crucial. What type of service is it? Is it consulting? Is it membership? Is it a conference, etc.? But in some countries in Europe, and again, that is a lesson maybe for the future, some tax authorities say, I'm sorry, it's not deductible for expenses in your personal account, personal tax, or in the corporate tax. So I just wanted to say that there are different ways of how to look at taxation, and where, unfortunately, tax authorities are looking for new revenues and looking at new tax purposes.
Quite a good insight. Coming back to Adarji, I know a lot of associations are smaller ones, especially representing the interest of their member. Often, kind of asked, because at the end of the day, they are the custodian of their member. And now, how do they handle cross-border legal issues, IPR issues, and they don't know who to go to. So sometimes, as a first go, they could come back to the association. Okay? What kind of advice you have for the association? Because you represent an association. Of course, you are blessed because from the legal association, but there are several other associations may not be. So they may spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees in a lawyer's fee without knowing. So can association, what are your suggestions for the association?
See, actually in earlier days, there was no necessity to have foreign division in every association. But today, not only the law associations, but actually other associations also should have foreign division, and the officer in charge of that should know what is the law in India relating to that branch of subject matter, and what laws are there in other countries where their members may have interest. So regarding our lawyers, we have made up, because now for the last 10 years, this thing has been thought that there is a necessity, because our lawyers also want some business to do, and they have some clients, foreign association or Indian associations also want to set up their branches or to do business abroad. So we have developed a system of having foreign division in our association.
So you are saying the international desk in there?
International
some volunteer
desk
who is working on
who
it. Okay.
will be knowing the latest development about India's laws which may be relevant to foreign associations, because the system now, what is the for foreigners, whether when they want, whether they can open their bank account, foreign association they can open their bank account or their sub office here or not. Normally people think we are having headquarter in London or US, so we can just have a open office without getting any permission from any authorities. But actually in India there is a provision that no foreigner, foreign companies, whether it is under Companies Act or under US law or anywhere, they should have the permission of Ministry of Home Affairs also, Ministry of External Affairs also. So many requirements are there which is not known. So if foreign associations will approach us, our foreign division, I may be not knowing, being in charge of our overall association, but in charge of that, our foreign division will be in a position to tell, and we will be charging also. Because you see, we are spending money, our foreign division official will be equipped, he has to get information, so we will be nominally charging, because this is our social responsibility. It will be responsibility for our members, because nobody can become master. Ordinary lawyer, if he has a client, so he will approach our foreign division and he can have the information. And I, being the president of International Council of Jurists, we are requesting other bar associations also throughout the world that they should also have, because it is not only our lawyers, it is not there. It will be good that if there is a cooperation between all bar associations and throughout the world, if different bar associations have such provision.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. Rajan, coming back to you, interestingly, and I keep hearing this and while talking to different associations, majority of their revenue, or let's say surplus, come from non-membership count, from that, whether it is event, training, and other revenue. Because we all know membership alone cannot sustain an association. Now, there is a lot of ambiguity that I see. Professional society, trade association, when they build courses or an event, there's a component of service tax.
Absolutely.
There's a component of TDS to be deducted. Now, some of the association do charge, some there are confusion, no, we are a knowledge body, we should not charge service tax, and some of them don't even have the service tax number. So I know in this room, how many of you have this confusion? Just so that we know.
Or your friend has.
Okay, so a fair number of people still, and I'm sure many other people still learning this thing. And in the law, there is a lot of ambiguity in this.
Yes.
So if you could just throw some light so that they know that associations also in the right side of the legal law, at the same time they are able to carry on the job by knowing fully.
Sure. Yes, that is a gray area, and case laws are there and judgments are there on the same subject which you have just mentioned. So here I would like to take your attention to what Ed has just suggested in the morning, the net. So it's the difference between surplus or profit. If you can establish that net is your surplus and not profit, then you are totally exempt from tax, and you are totally exempt from all the compliances like service tax and VAT and other commercial taxes which are involved in the transaction. So one thing I would like to suggest is any association should get the maximum probability of saving the tax and making it a surplus is that when you are a recognized association under section 80G. So it will give you several benefits. Not only your donations, your contributions will have a lot of benefits for your members, but also all your receipts will be tax-free. However, if you are not a 80G association or an organization, you should make sure that all your revenues and receipts are treated can be shown, can be established as the mutual benefits for the members. However, if it cannot be shown, you are actually providing consultancy services. So of course, tax laws are becoming more and more stringent, and as Alphan has said, that tax authorities, of course, they have their own targets and views to collect as much tax as they can. And there are organizations who, in the light of social activities, they are doing commercial activities. Maybe there is a thin line between them. So that is where you have to think that the activities should be in the nature of mutual benefit, should be for the, it should be an object of the benefit of the society at large, and should not be for the benefit of a group of people. So if you can actually establish that, then you can save tax.
So Rajan, coming back, how do we establish that? In a sense, I know associations here organizing, let's say, a different kind of events or exhibition. Sometimes they're required to charge by the law service tax. Sometimes they said, no, it is just for, especially applicable to the professional societies, where they said, we are a group of people looking at the common interest and discussing, there is no commercial exchange.
Yes.
These are only knowledge exchange.
Yes.
So should we charge service tax? Or should we deposit the service
Yes.
tax?
Yeah, as I have told you that there are case laws, there will always, this is a gray area, and there are a couple of things which you can do. Get registered under section 80G, make sure that your documents or your literature is in the nature of not commercial activity. Do not use the words which are generally used by multinational consulting corporations, like consulting services and things like that, and give it a picture and color of a social activity in order to avoid the
So the point is that entire communication system has to be such a
Yes,
way
absolutely.
that it shows for.
Yes.
Any last comment before I take the question?
Yeah, now maybe one is that I forgot to mention, but I reserved it to the last, is that in the US there's now also taxation on lobbying, right? So it means that if you have the so-called lobby tax, it actually means that you have to define either the members have to pay that tax or the association can pay it on behalf of the members. So I would argue that this may be yet another area where governments around the world are looking for that even if you have to lobby the government, you have to pay the government for being able to lobby them. So it's an interesting concept of how a new tax came around. And finally, some European countries have taken such a stance on value-added tax that for many associations it has become relevant to register for VAT, for value-added tax, because you can then recuperate all the expenses on which you have to pay VAT, and your members can also recuperate the VAT. So rather than being the end station, you actually are a pass-through for VAT reasons. Too complicated, but I just want to mention this is a field that you need expertise advice on.
Thank you. What I actually hearing from all of you is that, of course, it's a complex VAT system, different if association or their members are wanting to venture out in the other countries. In terms of Indian association having aspiration of going out, they must have internal someone, a volunteer expert into that thing, international law, to be able to understand before going there, to save taxes, your communication internally and national, you must try for 80G of your association, or your commercial or your intercommunication should be such a way in terms of letter and spirit from the website to your documentation that it shows that it is for a social reason or for a group of people, not for a commercial reason.
Absolutely.
Is there any questions that, please, can you give the mic to the gentleman? And of course, in the back, yes, sir, we'll come back to you. Sir, I'll take this call first. If you could stand up, sir, and identify yourself. Okay.
No, working.
Yeah. Take the other one. Take the other one.
Yeah. So I have a couple of questions or doubts. the organizations or associations which are like multinational in nature, recently in India because of the FCRA issues, they got into the problem and the funds are not coming in the foreign currencies until or unless you have the FCRA registrations. So some of the associations, including IEEE, what they do is like they have a local office in India now. They registered as a private limited company or something like that, and that company is getting all the foreign currencies, and then they are transferring it to all the local bodies in India in Indian rupees. First question is it legal? Is it legally like ethical? Or what is the legality of this thing that you are getting the currency, foreign currency, converting into the Indian rupees and then sending to the local sections or chapters?
FCRA permission is required.
But now the sections are not getting the foreign currencies.
No, even if that is any money coming from foreign organization, you are required to have.
No, but that company where the fund is coming, it is a private limited company. It's not a society or something like that. So private limited companies.
If it is a donation, then you have to donation or grant. But if it is in if you have sold, if you have given any service, then it is you have not to seek permission.
No, Aditya, I understand your question. When a private limited company, of course, IEEE in India, they have come up with IEEE
Yes.
India
Yes.
Limited, and they are receiving fund, that private company, so they are not receiving fund as a grant.
Yes, that's true.
They are not. So FCR permission is not
Not
required.
required.
Your question is different, whether that private company then sending that money
Yeah.
to the different section, whether it is legal or not. Is that,
Yes,
is that
because
your question?
almost all the sections or chapters are registered as a society.
Right.
And in fact, our section is registered as ATG also.
Okay. I think that is the only way to do it, because you cannot directly receive the foreign exchange currency. You can't receive it until unless you are an FCRA registered. So I think that is the only viable way to do it.
But is it legally?
Yeah, it's legal.
Yeah, it is.
No, for what purpose they are receiving?
For what? Yeah, purpose
That
is
is
important.
the issue.
Yes.
If you are getting for providing any service, then you are not required
We are not
to.
providing any service. We are doing the non-profit activities.
He's
No,
saying
no.
he are registered under section 80G. So
No. What where they are giving, in what capacity, for what purpose? Whether sale of anything,
I
or
think
that is
important
the
thing is
issue.
to understand.
Let me just explain you. This is something like that IEEE US has established an office in India with a private firm kind IEEE Global India, right? Now, since they can't give the direct funds to this, so they are proceeding for that, also taking FCR permissions and others kind of a thing. They are transferring funds in the name of that company, and then this company is asking our local chapters to provide services to different mass, like students or lecturers or this, and for that they are giving a particular fund to that company.
Correct.
And I think that seems to be reasonable in the sense this company is asking us or giving us the money in the name of IEEE to provide services to the different people of the social nature.
So it means this is a grant
This is
given
a-
by American company
No,
to
this-
Indian company.
No.
What?
This is not a grant to the Indian company.
What?
This is a kind of a lump sum money they are providing to India to count for their
Correct.
loss and
So,
benefit.
oh.
But that company then distributing this money
Correct.
to the section and chair for providing social services.
So this company, Indian company which they have formed, to whom they are giving first time here, and then this A company is American, B company is they have formed Indian company,
B.
and C is the user,
Local
chapters in different villages.
Right.
So B company is getting as a charity or grant or something. So
As a business venture.
business, so business venture, it is not business venture.
No.
You can't claim business venture.
They are getting as a business venture in the sense because
If this we will allow, then all.
No. Just we want to understand it.
Sir,
why
it's
not
a
we-
rebate against the membership which we every year we have to pay those who are members.
Yes.
It's That's all. In the terms of foreign exchange.
How you, that US company is giving to B company in India.
Yeah, agreed. That's what the
Ah,
sir is
So
saying.
what
So-
is your perspective? Is it
But
legally?
this is illegal without
That's what
having
I'm
this
asking
clearance
you,
from
your-
FCRA, you can't receive it.
Yeah.
If this is being openly allowed, then all foreign religions and companies, they will be ruling. Huh.
You need to give the microphone to shortly,
company,
briefly.
which is a foreign company, has opened an office in India to put
That
it
is a different entity, sir. They can't open. They have to seek permission.
They have opened. They have
Adarshi,
taken,
Mr. Gupta, I
That
think.
is not
I think,
office.
it's
This is a
it's
different
not
company.
From, I think this could
This
be
is a-
done off-site, he is here. I think,
Yeah,
good clarity, I think this is good. Let me
Prashant-
take the question of the gentleman,
Prashant,
please.
I have a small question before.
My name
you
is
take-
Sampath.
Let us give him chance. I'm sure the distinguished panel is here, you could always ask
No,
him.
that was the
in
main
offline.
question which I wanted to ask actually.
Give him chance, please.
My name is
Sir.
Sampath. I am the Strategic Management Group apart from the Indian Institution of Engineering. You see, the apart from this ATG, 12AA provisions certainly gives you what is called exemption from tax. ATG is only for the people who are really donating to you, whereas you as a society, Social Registration Act, under 12AA, you get tax exemption, which we are getting. That's why I'm telling you. What is the implications of 12AA?
Sorry?
What is your question, sir? Please be clear.
What are the implications of 12AA of Income Tax Act?
12A.
The society is also not required to pay tax.
So under section 12AA, if you are a society, you are not required to pay tax. 100% exemption actually.
One last question, please.
See, basically, I am from Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, Chennai. Recently, ours is a 25A company, and all these years we were not paying service tax. But last year, one of the income tax commissioner has given a notice to pay service tax and asking us to pay service tax. And this has happened to many of the other chambers in Chennai also. But the same thing has not been applied to other chambers in other cities.
You want that should be also issued notice.
Please.
We are based in Bombay, and many chambers in Bombay had paid all the previous service taxes.
All will be getting, if somebody has not got, give us list, they will get
Sir,
the
I can
notice.
So
tell you.
don't worry, the taxmen are coming.
You are under wrong impression that other chambers have not paid. Many
Every-
chambers had paid up to extent of 10 lakhs.
You see,
Mr. Biswas,
initial
you wanted
stage
to ask
people feel
something?
it.
One last, I think we are just
We overtime?
crossing
No,
our
but
time
this is
limit.
last year.
Mr.
Hello,
Biswas,
it's important.
quickly.
I'm
It's
Porimal
important.
Biswas from Indian Institute of Holding, based at Calcutta. I'm Honorary Secretary General. You see, we are paying service tax for last some years. There is no ambiguity. I want to know whether the exemption of service tax for any association. We are registered under 25A. We have ATG approval also, to will be also registered. But is there any scope of getting exemption for service tax? Because we have to take service tax from the members. Membership, we are giving service tax. Anything we are doing, we are taking service tax and pay to the government. Is there any exemption on this?
I think
for
it's
law?
becoming more of a norm than an exception because service tax now is almost levied by almost every association. So it is falling in the becoming a norm and a trade practice in India has to charge service tax by charge service tax by like CII is charging for its events and every organization, UK, IBC, you talk about any association, so they are subject to service tax.
It is a must to consult the lawyer and seasoned lawyer, because if you sometimes you are not entitled to charge and you have charged, then you can be prosecuted.
Okay, that's a friendly advice. That's a friendly advice from Mr.
ATG
Agarwal.
only for donation. ATG only for donation. There is no other any connection with ATG.
Okay,
So
anybody
only for
else
donation,
needs some-
tax is relieved. That's all.
Anybody needs some friendly advice, of course, Mr. Agarwal will be here. I have to just move on to the next session. Thank you, Rajan. Thank you, Alphonse. Thank you, Adesh.